Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Georgina and I have decided to challenge myself and try and do HRCYED 3.0. I have done HRCYED 2.0 before, but I did it like freshly read books and I did a combination of some of the HRCYED 1.0 bingo squares and some of the HRCYED 2.0 ones. I managed to get 95% completed, which I am really happy about. But this time around I thought, why not film it and take you guys along for the ride of seeing how much I can get read for HRCYED 3.0. So yes, thank you for joining me. First, I'll tell you what HRCYED actually is. HRCYED stands for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. It is made by Stephanie on the channel QWERTY. That is the host and the creator of this challenge. So I'll link in the description her channel so you can check it out as well, and any and all extra information you may need pertaining to the challenge, because I will be going through some of the basic rules of HRCYED 3.0, but I won't be doing all of them. So if you'd like to join, go over to QWERTY's channel and there will be more information over there. I have already made a tentative TBR of some of the books I may want to read for prompts, which I will be taking you through. I will be doing the no-nonsense version of HRCYED 3.0 because there are 4 different versions. There is the no-nonsense version, which one I will be doing, and I'll explain in a little bit which one that is. We have I don't have time for that version. We have a gamified version and then the kids and teens version, but I will be doing the no-nonsense version, which is just basically complete all 25 squares within the bingo board, and between 3 and 7 different prompts within each square that you have to complete I will be completing, or at least I will be attempting to complete them. I will not be adding any extra little bits on top of that. I feel like that's just going to be too much for me, so I'm just going to try the no-nonsense version and see how we get along. We have, as I said, 25 different squares. The first square on the bingo board is Choose Your Party. This is a D&D inspired square, which means you have to, as it states, choose your own party. You get bards, wizards. If you're confused as what I'm looking to, I have my laptop in front of me because I cannot remember all of this from just my head. Laptop it is. We have, let's see, barbarians, bards, clerics, druids, fighters, monk, paladins, rangers, rogues, sorcerers, warlocks, wizards, and so forth and so forth. I have chosen 2 books off of my physical TBR that I would like to do for this one, and then the other 3 we'll just see as I read if anything fits into this category. So for Sorcerer I have chosen This Poison Heart by Kaylin Bayron, but I've had this book for quite a while and I thought it would be perfect for this prompt. And then I have chosen Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb for the Rogue, because as is in the title, Assassin, I'm going to assume he's a rogue. If not, we might have to rethink this, but for now, that is where it is. Then for the second square we have the periodic table, which means you have to read 5 books, and each book must contain a different periodic table name. It has to be in the title of the book. Just 5. And I have, in fact, chosen 5 books, and hopefully I will get to all 5 of them. So I have chosen A Touch of Golden Madness by K.L. Devore for gold. I have chosen Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher for silver. I have chosen The Oxygen Farmer by Colin Holmes for oxygen. I have chosen Carbon by Tegan Brooks for carbon. And I have chosen Mercury by Hope Larson for mercury. I did find a couple of other books, but I thought I'm interested in reading these ones. Seems up my alley. Mercury I'm not 100% sure on if I'm going to like this book or not, but I thought I'd give it a go. None of these books are on my physical TBR, but at least 2 of the 3 of these I have heard about and have actually been on my radar for a while, which were A Touch of Golden Madness and Hemlock on Silver. So I am excited to get to those, and the other 3 I just found by typing in the elements of the periodic table and just scrolling through my story graph until I found something that I would enjoy. So I will be giving a go and we'll see how it goes. Then for the third square we have familiar terms, which means you have to read 5 books with in the title a familiar term, which means aunt, uncle, child, daughter, son, mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, any of those kind of books you would have to read. Now I do have a question. Because I have a book on my bookshelf which is called The Godmothers. Would that count for familiar terms? Because is a godmother part of the family or just like more of like religious family? Please let me know because I'm a bit iffy on that one. I haven't put it on there yet because I'm not 100% sure if we actually count that one towards familiar terms. Please let me know what your opinion is. Now for traipsing through regions, we will be doing 5 books from 5 different regions. I'm not too sure how best to explain this one. Yeah, as I said, if you want more information, go over to QWERTY's website or YouTube channel and there'll be more explanations over there. But I have chosen one book for this one so far, which is Mercury by Hope Larson, and this one will count for Eastern Canada because it takes place in Nova Scotia. The next square is Choose Your Curriculum. I have chosen 2 books off my TBR for this one. The first one I have chosen is Testament of Youth by Vera Britton. I will be using this one for the history curriculum. The second one I have chosen is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and I will be using this one towards social studies. The other 3 for this prompt I have not yet chosen, so if you have any recommendations, leave them below. Then we have the square Road Trip. I have not yet chosen any books for this one, so once again, if you have any recommendations, please let me know. Then we have Bookception, which is read a book that mentions a book inside of it. It does have to be an actual book that exists in the real world, and then read the book that it mentions. It can be anything, just no Harry Potter, no J.K. Rowling, none of that. You can't do that one. Not allowed. I have one in mind, but I'm not 100% sure if it actually mentions a book, so I'm going to keep that one to myself for now. And then we have the not so secret prompt anymore square, which is a square which has 12 different books you need to read, each pertaining to the last HRCYED, so HRCYED 2.0, and you have to read one book for each of these prompts within it. I have already chosen. Title is the exact same as another, and for this prompt I have chosen Hat Trick by Chelsea Curto. Now I'm not 100% sure if I then also have to read another book with the same title. I'm pretty sure it's only have to read one. I guess I'm gonna have to double check that one, or if you know, leave it down in the comments section. For any of the other books I haven't yet chosen anything. If anyone has a book recommendations for a book with a pun in the title, I would love to know some suggestions. Just no horror books. Just literally, my only request is no horror. Well, actually I have 2 requests. No horror, no non-fiction. Other than that, I don't care, but just no horror, no non-fiction with a pun in the title, because I feel like that one might be slightly difficult to locate. So if you have any recommendations, I would love them. The next square is cover styles. So you have to read all 4 books with 4 different kind of cover styles. I feel like this one should be pretty straightforward considering the amount of variety I read. I'll just read a book and then just add it onto here if it doesn't fit into 2 other prompts. Then we have the titular counting, which means you need 10 different books, 1 book that has 1 word in the title, all the way up to a book that has 10 words in the title. So from 1 to 10, you have to read them all. I think up until about 5 or 6, I think should be doable. I feel like it's probably going to get a bit difficult after that one. I do have books in mind that I think I would like to use for this, but I'm not 100% set on them. I think this one is also just going to be a case of I read something, it goes towards only one other prompt, and then I go, do you know what? It'll fit in here, and I'll slot it in here. Then we have characters to authors. Now, the first book that I chose is Emma by Jane Austen, because I have it on my bookshelf and I really enjoyed Pride and Prejudice, so I want to read Emma, which means my next book has to be an author that has the same first name as my character in the previous book, which is Emma. Gone from Emma from Jane Austen to Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, and then the main character's name in that book is Pepper, so I have then gone with Authentically Izzy by Pepper Basham. I'm actually really excited for all of these. I started with Emma and then I just searched up in Storygraph Emma and then just went through them and went, this author has the same name, that looks interesting, and then I did the same thing again for that book. The next square is Shiritori, which means you need to read your first book and then the last letter or word, your choice, but I will be doing letters. Whichever letter the last letter in that title is, has to then be the first letter or word in the next book you read. And then I believe with words, the A and an don't count, but I believe with the letter one, it does actually count. So I think it's going to be a little bit tricky, but it should be doable. So, and I'm also going to be doing this one just on a base of, I read a book and then go, this letter seems to be with something I would read next or something like that, and I'll just go through it like that. I'm not pre-planning this square. I think that's just going to be, with the way I like to read, not very sustainable, so we're leaving that one as it is. The next square is the HRCYED mashup square, which means you have to choose a square from HRCYED 1.0 and one from 2.0, and you mash them up together. And then you have to read 5 books from the mashup. I have chosen the new release square and then the A to Z challenge. So I need to read a new release with an alphabet letter. I will be going with slightly more obscure letters, if you will, because I want to make it slightly more challenging. So I think I'll probably be going with X, Z, U, that kind of like letters, like the slightly more difficult to find letters. And there is no doubling up in any of the letters, which means if in August I read a book with the first letter being T, then I cannot use the T again. It has to be a different letter from on that point. 5 of them, which I feel like it should still be doable. Then we have numerical titles, which means you have to read a book with the number 1 through 10 into the title, and then a random number like 2312 I believe I have on my shelf. Yep, I do in fact have that title on my shelf. So I have 2 books for this challenge so far. I have chosen The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout because that is the next book that I have to read in the series. So I've been holding off. So I have been holding off on reading that one until the 7th of July, which is when the official start date is. I've then chosen Darker by 4 by June C.L. Tan for the number 4. Those are the only 2 books that I currently have in this square. We will then be going on to a rainbow of words. Instead of reading like previous HRCYEDs, the rainbow in terms of the colour being on the cover of the book, we will now be reading the rainbow in the titles. So the actual letter has to be in the title of the book. I have chosen most of them. I've gone for Red City by Mary Lou for red. For orange, I've gone for The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. For yellow, I've gone for Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. For green, I've gone for Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. For blue, I've gone for Out of the Blue by Jason June. Purple, I have not yet chosen a book for, and I've also not yet chosen a book for pink. So if you have any recommendations for a book that has either purple or pink, or both, in the title, please let me know. Once again, rather no horror. Non-fiction, I mean, you can actually put a horror or non-fiction book and I'll have a look at the synopsis and stuff and see if I'd be interested, but preferably no. Then for white, I've gone for White Hot Kiss by Jennifer L. Armentrout. For black, I've gone for Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. Then for silver, I've gone for Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. And for gold, I've gone for A Touch of Golden Madness. So as you can see, there are like, in the periodic table, with silver and gold, you can quite easily then double that one up for the rainbow of words. So it is slightly easier to double up on stuff in this challenge, is my opinion at least. Then we have the animal families for the next square. And I have chosen 4 books for this one. I've gone for The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern for Strigiformes, which is owls and that kind of birds. I've then gone for Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb for the deer family because it has, I'm not sure what it has, but it has an animal with antlers which is classified under the deer family. I've then chosen Accomplice to the Villain for reptiles because it has a crocodile, or at least I believe it's a crocodile on the front of this. And then I have chosen Dracula by Bram Stoker, which has bats on the cover, but I'm not 100% sure which category of animal family that one fits into, but it definitely doesn't fit into any of the other ones that I've already mentioned, so we're good on that front. The next square is biomes. I have not yet chosen any books with different biomes in the covers, but for this one, as it's stated, you need to read 6 different books, 6 different biomes on the cover. So tundra, desert, water plains, beach, rainforest. Then we have remix, which is you need to read 5 different books with 5 different retellings. So like it could be a villain retelling, a fantasy retelling, just any kind of retelling of a different story. I have gone for a series. I have chosen If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy for a Cinderella retelling, By the Book by Jasmine Gullery for a Beauty and the Beast retelling, Kiss the Girl by Zoe Cordova for a Little Mermaid retelling, Tangled Up in You by Christina Lauren for a Tangled/Rapunzel retelling, and then Worth Fighting For by Jess K. Zutana for a Mulan retelling. This all falls under the Meant to Be series, so this is a 5-book series, from each book written by a different author and a different Disney retelling. Those are the books I've gone with. I'm quite excited to read those. Then I have The Food Pyramid, and I have chosen A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by J. Penna for desserts, because it has all kinds of desserts on the front cover. And then I have chosen Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett, because it has mushrooms on the cover. It falls either under fungus or vegetables. I've put it under vegetables, but it could be either, I'm pretty sure. Then we have weather covers. I have chosen 2 books for the weather covers. I've chosen The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan because it has lightning on the cover. And then I have chosen Breath by Sarah Crossan because it has kind of like a desert, well, it's not really a desert, but it has severe drought is the weather conditions in the cover on this book. So I've gone for that one. If you don't think it counts, please let me know. We can have a discussion about it. I personally think it does because it's severe drought, so it is a weather condition. Severe weather on the cover. Then we have It's Your Birthday, which means you have to read 7 different books, each pertaining to a different thing to do with your birthday. So you have your birthstone, your birth tree, published in your birth month, your Chinese zodiac, you have your birth flower, and the meaning of your name. So for my birthstone we have diamond. I have not yet chosen a book for that, so if you have any recommendations, once again, let me know. Then for published in April, I've gone for A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by J. Penna because it was published in April. Then for Aries, I've gone for Blood Over Bright Haven because it has fire on the cover and Aries is a fire sign. Then for my Chinese zodiac sign, it's a dog. So I haven't actually chosen a book for this, but I feel like it should be quite straightforward to pick up a book with a dog on the cover. Considering how many like romance books I read with the cartoon covers, it really shouldn't be. I think in my head a couple of books already popped up that have dogs on the cover. One of them is by Sarah Adams. Can't quite remember which one it is, but I may read that one. Then for my birth flower, it's either a daisy or a sweet pea. Gone for Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett because I believe, if I look closely at it, it has either daisies or the sweet peas on the cover. And then for Farmer, I've gone for Oxygen Farmer by Colin Holmes because, as the title states, farmer. So yeah, because my name Georgina means farmer or earth worker, so I decided, you know what, I'm already reading that one for the periodic table, so may as well double it up and use it as the farmer prompt because I'm not going to read any other book with farmer in the title of it. So then we have, for the next square, backlist author. You need to read 5 books from an author you enjoyed that you still have a backlist to read from, and you can do it like multiple authors, but you have to read 5 books. the majority of my backlist author books is going to be by R.A. Sandpiper, because I read the ARC copy of To Touch a Silent Fury by her and I absolutely adored that book, but I haven't yet gotten around to reading the other 4 books that she has already published. So I will be reading A Pocket of Lies, A Promise of Blood, A Claiming of Souls, and Heir of Water. Those are the 4 books that I have chosen so far for my backlist author, and then I'll see which other author I quite enjoyed that still has a backlist. Maybe I'll go with R.F. Kuang because I quite enjoyed Babel. I do need to read Yellowface and I haven't yet. Then the next square we have I must endeavour to acquire these creatures. This is a Pokemon based or inspired prompt where you need to read 5 different books that in some way relate to the different Pokemon skills / different Pokemons that you can have. I have chosen 4 books for this one so far. I have gone with Heir of Water for a water Pokemon, Blood Over Bright Haven for fire Pokemon, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab for a invisible Pokemon, This Poison Heart by Kaylin Bayron for a poison Pokemon. Then the next square, second to last square, is an anthology of authors, which means you have to read an anthology with 6 or more authors in it, and then you have to read from 6 authors, or 6 of those authors, you have to read another book. So I have a book here that I picked up a couple months ago, which is A Universe of Wishes by Donielle Clayton, and it has, I think, over 10 different authors that have written a short story for this book, and I have chosen 6 books for this. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, The Black Sun by Rebecca Ronhard, Hollow Fires by Samira Ahmed, When the Moon Was Ours by Anne-Marie McNamara, War Girls by Tochi Anyabuchi. I really hope I'm not butchering that name. I am so sorry if I am. And then I have chosen Kiss the Girl by Zoraida Cordova. Those are the 6 books that I have chosen to read from the many authors that are in this anthology, and I hope I'm going to enjoy most of them. I think I am, based on the synopsises. And then for the last and final square we have Second Chances and Hidden Gems. I've chosen 2 out of the 5 books that I need to read for this square. Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard, because I DNF'd this like multiple times at this point and I just really badly want to read it and get on to the next one. And then I have a random find, which is Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, because I once again just typed into the Storograph Emma for the characters one, came across that one, so it is a random find and I feel like it should go in that one. That is my tentative TBR for HRCYED 3.0. As I said, not all of the books are filled in, and I'm going to do a lot of mood reading because I am a mood reader. But yeah, if you have any other book suggestions that you think I might like or just would want me to read, that's also fine. Leave them down in the comment section below and I'll check them out. I hope this video either gave you some good recommendations that you hadn't thought of before, or maybe it made you want to join in on HRCYED 3.0, because I think it's going to be a really fun challenge. I will be doing a series on this channel where I will be reading for the HRCYED challenge, because I think it'd be fun to take you guys along. So if you want to see that, do make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out when I upload the videos, and consider liking this video if you enjoyed it or thought it was helpful in any way. And I hope to see you in my next video. Goodbye!